The people who dismiss you are not rejecting your logic, they are measuring your weakness. The faster you explain, the lower your status drops, because urgency signals need, and need invites resistance. The moment your voice slows, their nervous system starts recalculating, which means, Chapter 1, Why Fast Speech Makes You Easy to Defy. Most people think influence begins with better arguments. It does not. Influence begins with the body of the listener deciding whether you are safe to ignore. Before your words are evaluated for intelligence, morality, or usefulness, they are filtered through ancient machinery buried in the nervous system. That machinery is not democratic. It does not care whether you are right. It cares whether you sound like someone who can be dismissed without consequence. This is the first brutal truth of the slow voice protocol. When people keep ignoring your words, the problem is often not your message. It is your delivery rate, your tension pattern, and the invisible signal of social position carried inside your breath. Fast speech is usually interpreted in one of three ways. First, anxiety. Second, permission-seeking. Third, overinvestment in being accepted. None of these states commands respect. In social conflict, people do not submit to the most correct person. They calibrate themselves around the most emotionally stable one. Look at history. Interrogators, elite negotiators, old-school trial lawyers, intelligence handlers, battlefield commanders, and cult leaders understood something ordinary people miss. The person who controls tempo controls interpretation. A calm voice forces others to work harder. A rushed voice does their work for them. Consider the Roman Senate. Power did not belong only to the loudest speaker. It belonged to the man who could make the room wait. Delay itself became theater. In modern courtrooms, a skilled attorney knows that a measured cadence gives the jury time to absorb weight. Rush, and the argument evaporates. Slow down, and every line lands like a verdict. Now think about your own life. Think about the last time you tried to explain yourself to someone who had already decided not to listen. A partner scrolling while you spoke, a manager interrupting, a friend brushing off your boundary, a family member treating your words like background noise. What happened next? You probably gave more detail, more reasons, more emotional energy. In other words, you fed the exact behavior that was disrespecting you. That is the trap. Resistance feeds on excess explanation. When people sense that you need to be understood immediately, they gain leverage. They can stall, smirk, interrupt, or pretend confusion because your urgency tells them that time is on their side. The faster you push, the more they retreat. This is not always conscious cruelty. Sometimes it is basic social instinct. Humans test pressure by leaning away from it. The slow voice protocol begins by reversing this frame. Over 7 days, you train your voice to communicate one message beneath the message. I am not chasing your approval. Day 1 is not about sounding dramatic. It is about reducing verbal leakage. Speak at roughly 20% slower than your normal pace. Not robotic, not theatrical, deliberate. Cut the filler words first. Just, like, I mean, you know, basically. These words are small acts of self-erasure. They soften statements before anyone has even attacked them. Instead of saying, I just think maybe we should probably revisit this because I feel like it's not really working, say, this is not working, we're revisiting it. Same meaning, different hierarchy. Day 2, lower your sentence count. If someone ignores your first clear statement, do not explain it again in longer form. Compress. No, that won't work. We'll do this later. I already answered that. Short speech forces the other person to reveal their motive. Are they confused? Or are they probing for weakness? A manager says, "Can you stay late again tonight?" Old pattern. I'm sorry, I know the team needs help, and I really would if I could, but I have some things I need to do and I'm exhausted from the week. Slow voice response. No, I'm unavailable tonight. If they respect boundaries, the conversation ends. If they do not, they expose themselves. That exposure matters. Because once you stop drowning your point in explanations, a chilling thing happens. People can no longer hide behind misunderstanding. They must either meet your words or openly challenge your position. And that is when the real power game begins. Chapter 2. The 7-Day Slow Voice Protocol. This protocol is not a performance trick. It is behavioral reconditioning. You are training your nervous system so that your speech no longer leaks compliance. Each day builds on the last, and each day changes how resistance forms around you. Day 1. Slow the entry. Before speaking, inhale once through the nose, exhale halfway, then begin. This kills the panicked habit of speaking on leftover breath, which makes the voice thin, rushed, and submissive. People trust voices that sound supplied, not starved. Exercise. Respond to ordinary questions with one beat of silence before answering. How was your day? Pause, then answer. Can you send that tonight? Pause, then answer. The pause is microscopic but psychologically massive. It signals that you choose responses. You do not spill them. Day 2. Remove upward endings. Many people unconsciously turn statements into questions. Their pitch rises at the end, making certainty sound negotiable. I need that by Friday? We should stop this? This habit invites pushback. Flatten the ending. Let the sentence land downward. The body hears closure before the brain labels it. Day 3. Cut emotional disclaimers. No more, I hate to say this, I don't want to be rude, sorry, but these phrases are ritual kneeling. They train others to expect your boundaries wrapped in guilt. Example, in a relationship, one partner says, I don't want to be difficult, but I need you to stop speaking to me like that. The opening weakens the demand. A stronger form is, do not speak to me like that again. This is where many viewers get uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort reveals how deeply you were trained to package self-respect as apology. Day 4. Decrease repetition. If they ignored your point once, repeating it 5 times will not create respect. It creates the impression that your words have no enforcement behind them. State it once clearly. If ignored, shift to consequence. Parent with a teenager, be home by 10. Teen rolls eyes, comes home at midnight. Weak pattern, 10-minute lecture, repeated warnings, no follow-through. Strong pattern, you missed the time, no car this weekend. Workplace example, colleague keeps interrupting. Weak pattern, as I was saying actually, if I can just finish, I was trying to explain. Strong pattern, do not interrupt me, you'll have your turn. Short, slow, final. Day 5. Control eye contact and stillness. Most people sabotage verbal authority with fidgeting. They smile while setting boundaries. They overnod. They look away after each sentence as if asking to be forgiven. Stillness multiplies vocal force. A measured face and stable gaze make ordinary sentences feel heavier. Think of elite poker players, intelligence officers in debrief rooms, or old monarchs portrayed in historical dramas. Their advantage often comes from movement economy. They do not spend energy proving certainty. They embody it. Day 6. Use strategic silence. This is the phase that unsettles people most because silence is where social masks begin to crack. After a disrespectful comment, do not rush to fill the space. Let them hear what they just said. Let the air punish them before your words do. In hostage negotiation research, controlled silence can force the other side to keep talking, often revealing insecurity, contradiction, or need. The one who fills every gap gives away position. A partner says something dismissive in front of friends. Instead of nervous laughter or immediate defense, you hold eye contact for 2 seconds. Then, say that again, slowly, calmly, not louder, colder. That line works because it turns the spotlight. Many people become brave only inside momentum. Silence steals momentum. Day 7. Match consequence to tone. This final day is where reclaiming control becomes real. A slow voice without action is theater. Once your speech is clear, your consequences must become predictable. If someone repeatedly ignores your words, reduce access, reduce availability, reduce emotional labor, or escalate formally depending on context. If a friend mocks your limits, end the conversation. If a manager keeps violating boundaries, document and escalate. If a manipulative relative keeps baiting you, shorten contact. The protocol is not about domination for entertainment. It is about teaching people that ignoring your words has cost. Historical reference matters here. In diplomacy, credibility was never based on speeches alone. It rested on whether lines once stated were enforced. Empires collapsed not merely from military defeat, but from credibility erosion. Once others learned your warnings were symbolic, resistance multiplied. The same law governs personal life. If your no means convince me, people will continue pressing. If your stop means there will be no second warning, behavior shifts. And here's the darker layer. Many manipulators are not testing what you think. They are testing what happens when they cross you. They watch your face, your breath, your pace, your need to recover harmony. They are not listening to your words at all. They are studying the penalties attached to them. Chapter 3. Why Manipulators Fear the Slow Voice. A manipulator survives on speed, fast guilt, fast confusion, fast emotional escalation, fast reframing. Their greatest weapon is not intelligence, it is tempo. They want you reacting before you can observe. The slow voice protocol destroys that advantage by forcing interaction onto colder ground. Let us break down the psychology. Tactic 1, they overload the frame. They throw multiple accusations, side issues, emotional memories, and moral pressure into one burst. You respond to everything. You defend details. They stay in control. Slow voice response, isolate one point. We're discussing one issue. Then stop. Tactic 2, they weaponize your need to be seen as good. They imply that firmness makes you cruel, selfish, dramatic, or cold. If you rush to prove you are kind, you are already inside their frame. Slow voice response, your reaction does not change the boundary. This sentence is brutal because it separates emotion from decision. Tactic 3, they use selective deafness. They pretend not to understand direct statements, forcing you to repeat them until you sound unstable. This happens in families, workplaces, and romance more than people admit. A mother hears, "I'm not discussing that," and answers with another invasive question. A boss hears, "I need written confirmation," and continues verbally. A partner hears, "Do not insult me in public," and later calls you oversensitive. What defeats selective deafness is not louder speech, it is colder structure. Repeat once, then move to action. "I'm not discussing that." If they continue, end the call. "I need written confirmation." If they refuse, follow up by email only. "Do not insult me in public." If repeated, leave the event. Notice the pattern. The protocol shifts from language to environment. The manipulator loses because the stage itself changes. Look at the people around you. Who only respects firmness after consequence? Who hears your pain as negotiable but hears your withdrawal as real? That difference tells you everything. Some people understand language only when it alters their access to you. There is a historical parallel in interrogation resistance training. One of the first principles taught is to control cadence under pressure. Why? Because panic accelerates disclosure. Once breathing and pace collapse, cognitive discipline follows. The same mechanism appears in ordinary conflict. When your rhythm breaks, your frame breaks. This is why the slow voice feels threatening to manipulative personalities. It removes emotional fog. It broadcasts three things at once. I am not chasing understanding. I am not afraid of tension. And I can leave this exchange without collapsing. And for many controlling people, that is the one thing they cannot tolerate. Because control is not merely making you obey. Control is making you explain yourself endlessly while they evaluate whether your dignity is real. The day your tone changes, their strategy malfunctions. They provoke and get no scramble. They dismiss and get no pleading. They bait and get no spill. A real-life example. Imagine a divorce negotiation. One spouse has spent years dominating through interruption, mockery, and emotional volatility. In meetings, the other spouse used to overtalk, cry, justify, and ramble. Then something changes. The responses become short, the tone becomes level, documentation replaces arguments, silence replaces emotional defense. Suddenly, the dominant spouse becomes louder, angrier, more theatrical. Why? Because the old levers stopped working. The same pattern appears in offices. An employee known for over-explaining begins speaking with clipped calm. That deadline is unrealistic. Send that request in writing. I won't discuss this in the hallway. Within weeks, colleagues stopped testing casually, not because they became kinder, because ambiguity vanished. Manipulators thrive in ambiguity. The slow voice is anti-ambiguity made audible. Chapter 4. The Dark Ethics of Reclaiming Control. Now we enter dangerous territory. Any discussion of manipulation attracts the wrong kind of mind, people who want techniques without responsibility. So let us be precise. The slow voice protocol can protect your dignity, sharpen your authority, and neutralize resistance. But used without ethics, it can also become a tool of intimidation. Authoritative speech has always had a dual nature. The same calm cadence that can stop abuse can also enforce it. History is full of leaders whose stillness made them seem inevitable. Some used that power to stabilize chaos. Others used it to conceal monstrous intent. Think of propaganda eras in the 20th century. The most effective demagogues were not always screaming. Often, they alternated fire with chilling control. They knew that certainty in the voice can seduce exhausted populations. A measured tone can disguise irrational ideas as destiny. This is why vocal authority must be tied to principle, not ego. So ask the hardest question. When you reclaim control, what are you trying to control? Yourself, your boundaries, your environment, or other people's freedom? There is a line. Healthy control says you do not get to violate me. Toxic control says you do not get to differ from me. Healthy control says I decide what access you have. Toxic control says I decide what reality you are allowed to name. That difference matters. Break the fourth wall with me for a moment. Think about your own life. Are you trying to become harder to manipulate, or are you fantasizing about making everyone around you submit? Those are not the same ambition. One builds self-command. The other builds a prison that eventually closes on you too. The disciplined use of a slow voice has 3 ethical rules. Rule 1. Never simulate consequence you will not enforce. Empty authority becomes fraud. Rule 2. Never use calmness to erase someone else's valid pain. Some people perform composure while inflicting chaos. Their low tone is not strength. It is emotional camouflage. Rule 3. Reserve the coldest version of this protocol for chronic disrespect, coercion, boundary violation, and manipulation. Do not turn every disagreement into psychological warfare. Because the final revelation is this: true authority is not proving that you can dominate the room. It is proving that you do not need to. The most dangerous people are often not the loud tyrants. They are the ones who can remain composed while everyone else leaks. That can be noble. It can also be predatory. Your task is to become formidable without becoming corrupt. And if that sounds difficult, it should. Power without introspection rots fast. So when you slow your voice, do it with purpose. Not to play a villain from a film, not to collect reactions, not to hypnotize the weak. Do it to remove desperation from your speech. Do it to make your yes cleaner and your no undeniable. Do it so that the people around you understand at last that your words are not decoration. Because when spoken correctly, a boundary is not a request. It is architecture. Chapter 5. The final shift they never expect. By now the protocol sounds simple. Slower pace, fewer words, cleaner endings, strategic silence, consistent consequence. But the final shift is deeper than technique. It is identity. Most ignored people are not ignored because they lack intelligence. They are ignored because they unconsciously audition for permission while speaking. Every extra explanation says, "Please approve my reality." Every nervous laugh says, "Do not punish me for existing." Every repeated boundary says, "I hope this becomes true if I say it enough." The slow voice protocol ends that audition. When practiced correctly, your voice begins to communicate internal verdict before external response. That means you have already decided where you stand before the other person reacts. This is why the method feels so powerful. It is not hypnosis. It is pre-decision made audible. Watch how this changes every environment. In dating, neediness collapses attraction faster than honesty ever will. A person who states standards calmly is harder to manipulate than a person who performs endless tolerance to avoid abandonment. In family systems, one member often becomes the emotional sponge, the translator, the peacemaker, the one who explains everyone to everyone else. The day that person slows down and stops overfunctioning, the whole structure shakes. Suddenly, the family calls them selfish, distant, changed. What they really mean is, your old role was useful to us. In work, the employee who speaks least but clearest often ends up carrying more authority than the endlessly available explainer. Why? Because precision suggests standards, and standards imply cost. Here's the final operational sequence. If someone ignores your words, do this. First, reduce speed. Second, shorten language. Third, remove apology. Fourth, repeat once only. Fifth, attach consequence. Sixth, if disrespect continues, withdraw access. Seventh, never argue with evidence your nervous system already gave you. That last point is the one most people betray. Your body usually knows before your mind admits it. Tight chest, racing speech, need to justify, urge to win them back. These are not random sensations, they are alarms. They tell you the interaction has shifted from communication to power. And once you recognize that, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I make them understand? You start asking, why am I still performing for someone committed to misunderstanding me? That question is lethal to manipulators, because many of them depend on one illusion. that if you just explain better, they will finally become fair. But some people are not confused. They are incentivized. Your confusion benefits them. Your over-explaining flatters them. Your emotional labor feeds them. Your speed protects them, because a rushed mind cannot see the structure of the trap. A slow voice is not magic. It will not reform the malicious, heal the disordered, or melt cruelty into empathy. What it will do is reveal reality faster. Respectful people will adjust. Ambivalent people will clarify themselves. Predatory people will escalate when they feel access closing. That escalation is data. Do not fear it. Study it. If someone becomes angrier when you become calmer, you have learned something. If someone mocks your brevity, you have learned something. If someone suddenly calls you cold the moment you stop pleading, you have learned something. The protocol is called slow not because it weakens force, but because it removes distortion. It slows your delivery so you can see who is dealing with your words and who is dealing only with your vulnerability. And in the end, that is real control. Not controlling minds, not scripting outcomes, not conquering every room. Real control is standing in your own tempo so firmly that disrespect has nowhere soft to enter. When they ignore your words, do not chase harder. Lower the temperature. Reduce the language. Let the silence lengthen. Let consequence speak where explanation failed. Then watch carefully. The ones who valued access will correct themselves. The ones who valued control will reveal themselves. And from that moment on, you will never confuse being heard with being respected again. If this hit harder than you expected, that is because most people spend years polishing arguments while neglecting presence, cadence, and consequence. The world does not only respond to what you say, it responds to what your tone predicts will happen if your words are ignored. Study that, and every relationship changes shape. But do not stop at inspiration. Build a system. Train your breath. Train your pacing. Train your boundaries until calmness is no longer a performance, but a default state under pressure. To master these tactics in real life, get the Silent Observer's Playbook, or check out the recommended reading in the description below. Like and subscribe for more.